Hey, it's Tim and Guy. First of all, big shout out to the very strong response on our poll on great in the 70s, hate in the 80s. I mean, the impassioned defenses that we had, Guy, of Aerosmith, who I bludgeoned Aerosmith. They had it coming. But the bromance and that was felt by, the hatred for what Elton John did to people in the 80s. I mean, I'm Still Standing, for the longest time by Billy Joel might be the worst song ever created. It's just not fair.
We didn't start the fire.
Oh,
what I found interesting is the Doobie Brothers sucked in every era, as did Chicago. So that's a whole other, I think, topic.
Yeah, and then we got into a little bit like what do you do with the Police when their first two albums were in the 70s, and by the time we got into Ghost in the Machine, and they completely sold out in Synchronicity. But it's not quite the same thing. And Sting he was a little too precious. But here's what we have to do before we keep moving on. I think you have to understand that maybe you blame it on the decade. I mean,
No. I don't necessarily. Listen, this is another time for another. I agree with you that you can have a debate, but there were a lot of bands that stayed steadfast to their roots. But it's another conversation. With that said, by the way, and I mentioned it last night, but the Rod Stewart Faces era, as opposed to Rod Stewart, to me, that it just epitomizes what we're talking.
The Faces, the Small Face, Kenny Jones. There was a lot going on in that band. Let's move on. By the way, I didn't see you chiming in last night. You could have done this online. How about doing it tonight? What were you doing last night?
No, it's funny. So last night I put the phone away and I was doing the channel surf. Obviously, I'm not watching any sports, so I found myself in the midst of West Side Story with the great Natalie Wood, which that's one of her great roles, but I don't think that's her most iconic role. I ask you, what do you think? When you think of Natalie Wood, what movie do you think of Tim Seymour?
I think you got to go straight to Herald Square, right? 34th Street.
Miracle on 34th Street, and that
top
gets
notch
into a stock that was just again taken out to the woodshed.
Ooh, the letter M.
Macy's.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just amazing. So, what do you do? Is Macy's done, or is there some sort of? Is there going to be a rebirth when all this is over?
Boy, this is kind of sad. We've been talking about this company for a couple of years, and if you look at the market cap now, it's about 1.6 billion. It's not a terrible debt story, although people are concerned that some of their debt covenants will limit them at some point to what they can do. But without getting too in the weeds on credit metrics, you're talking about debt to EBITDA ratios, which I think they have a little bit of flexibility. But this is a company that needs to raise money. This is a company that before COVID-19. We've been talking about the end of the mall for a couple of years. We've been talking about the end of the department store even longer. And while Macy's has done some pretty interesting things to change the in-store experience and cut costs, I think the mortality fear here is I don't think from the balance sheet perspective it's real, but I think Macy's that we've known, and I hear apparently we're fighting to get fireworks on the 4th of July, is something I think people should be fearful about.
I think the only reason you're buying Macy's here, in my opinion, is for a trade into earnings, hoping that you get some short covering rally, which, by the way, you've seen a number of times
Vicious.
over the last 5 or 6 years in a trajectory that's been basically lower lows and lower highs. I mean, to me, that's the play, but I just don't see. Listen, Macy's seemed to be headed for this outcome prior to the coronavirus. This just sped things up, unfortunately. So very hard to paint a bullish picture for letter M.
Okay, so I'm not going to paint a go run in and buy it picture, but I will say on the sum of the parts, Macy's has assets in excess of $10 billion, and they've got debt at around $5.6 billion. This is a story that I think you're not going to see in its current form in a couple of years, but I do think that there's value there. And before we leave Macy's, I have to ask you, I mean, the whole Santa thing at Christmas time at Macy's, first of all, would you would you drop your kid on Santa's lap in today's day and age? And tell me about your favorite Santa experience.
So it's funny you say that. I mean, I guess the short answer is yes, I would. At the Short Hills Mall, by the way, each year there's a tremendous Santa. I mean, the guy is Santa, and I have no qualms whatsoever.
I mean, he is Santa. What does that mean? He is Santa.
I mean, you look at this cat and you're like, man, it's not the Fugazi beard. He's got the real Santa.
He's real. He's real. Yeah.
He's got the whole thing going. He's got the glasses. I mean, the whole ring, man. That cat is Santa.
But
My experience.
that alone is weird. That's weird. That dude, obviously, when he was younger and he started to cultivate a belly and grow a beard, people are like, yeah, you look like Santa. Now he thinks he's Santa. That's weird.
Is it any weirder than the Elvis impersonators and on the I mean, is it any weirder than any of the weird stuff that we see? I actually find it somewhat wholesome. Yes, I use that word.
Okay. Well, anyway, I do miss the times when bopping on Santa's knee at Macy's Herald Square was a wholesome moment. Speaking of a place that's just not very wholesome, Vegas, and concern about the Strip coming back, and I actually take a couple trips to Vegas every year. I'm not sure if I'm going to make two this year, and I'm someone that isn't typically scared of my shadow. Las Vegas Sands reports casinos in general. Your call here, because maybe an interesting opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, and you have the mayor of Las Vegas calling for the city to reopen. I saw that earlier today. I mean, you say this all the time. The best times to buy stocks is not when things are getting better. It's when things are going from really bad to not so bad. And I think that's what you're seeing now. And the Las Vegas Sands numbers weren't ridiculous, but the stock had gotten bludgeoned to the point where anything on the margins positive was going to move the stock. And that's what we're seeing. You have a nice little double bottom there in LVS, as you do in Wynn. I think even more so with Wynn. So I think Wynn closed today around 71. I saw it in the after hours. I think it was trading 74 in the back of LVS.
Yeah. I
think that name you can continue to own in the earnings. It doesn't mean the story is fixed by any stretch. As a matter of fact, I think Citi I want to say they upgraded the stock, but they lowered their price target from like 140 to 104. I don't think it's going to 104, but if it goes to 74 to 85 percentage-wise, that's a really significant move.
Well, we talk all the time during this moment for markets around COVID-19 and pure disruption. You've got to chase the best balance sheet. I like Las Vegas Sands here on that. They chopped their dividend. I think that was very prudent. I think that's the message that you want to see as an investor. But I agree with you, and I think about the great trading stocks in the market, and we talk about them on Fast Money all the time. Airlines and casinos. And I'll remind you that back in the lows of the crisis of 2008 and 9, LVS was $1.77 at the lows. Okay. I mean, who needs Bitcoin when you have trading opportunities like some of these stocks have given us over the last decade? So I'm not telling you that you have that opportunity, and the stock's not trading like that today either, but this stock has been destroyed. And if you look at the disproportionate, I think, impact people think on how the response will be on consumer behavior in casino stocks, you'd almost feel like you were watching The Godfather or something, man, which I'm guessing, by the way, you'll probably watch that tonight.
If I did, it would probably be the 400th time.
No kidding.
And that should come as no surprise, but I could do every character with every line, with every nuanced facial motion.
I don't need every character. I don't need your Luca Brasi. I need your top 5 mob movies of all time. Gangster.
Well, Godfather 1 and 2 are the same. To me, it's just it's the movie. So Godfather 1, Godfather 2 is number 1. Goodfellas.
I see what you did there. All right.
Well, you asked me. Goodfellas is a clear number 2. I would throw Casino in there at number 3.
Well, Sharon Stone. Yeah.
Yes. Great movie. Underestimated movie. And then there's a significant drop off from there. But those are my sort. I mean, there's
let me round you out, because I'm with you.
Mob movies, but those are the ones.
What, you find me funny? Like funny how? Like a clown?
There you go.
I mean that. Look, Goodfellas is ridiculous. How about this one? Kind of warmed my heart a little bit. Bronx Tale. I think De Niro, the bus driver, the father-son thing, and something that's said in that movie that is a term, a phrase I will reference a few times. You get 3 great ones in this world, and fortunately, I married one of my great ones, honey. But there's a lot of life lessons in the Bronx Tale, in addition to some good old gangster stuff. So on that, I think we need to find out how people are lining up their best gangster films. What do you think?
And I'll leave it on this. My favorite line in that movie is, "Now Zeus can't leave." Now, we will leave, but I want you to think about how scared you would be if somebody said that to you at your place.
I would be, I would definitely not be sticking around for the punchline. Anyway, man, good stuff. Talk to you tomorrow.
See you later.